Imagine this. The sheriff's deputy already reaching for his sidearm as Victoria Langford bellowed that I was invading her precious lake. The very waters my grandfather's backbreaking labor had helped carve out of the earth back in the sweltering summer of 1963. Her face, all stiff from whatever injections kept it unnaturally smooth, twisting into this smug victory grin while my 78-year-old mother, Evelyn Harper, lost in the haze of her dementia, started sobbing uncontrollably, convinced somehow that she was the one about to be hauled off for a long-forgotten shoplifting mishap from her teenage years. The air thick with the scent of early morning dew and fish scales, my heart pounding not just from the confrontation, but from the sheer helplessness of seeing Evelyn's fragile world shatter over something so trivial, so unjust. What would you do? I mean, really. If some self-righteous busybody summoned the law on your fragile, elderly mom just for casting a line in the spot where your family had gathered memories for decades, the injustice boiling up inside you like a storm you couldn't hold back, perhaps making you question how far you'd go to protect your own. Tell me in the comments, because I swear, that rage still simmers in me, and I'm dying to know if you've faced these overzealous HOA overlords who wield their rulebooks like divine scepters, turning quiet neighborhoods into battlegrounds of petty power plays. Where are you tuning in from? Anyway, let's see how widespread this madness really is, and maybe share how it stirs that quiet fury in your chest. My name's Ethan Harper, and up until about half a year ago, I was clinging to what passes for the good life these days, you know, that midlife grind at 52 where your marriage crumbles, your job as a mechanical engineer vanishes to some algorithm that never sweats the bills or the heartbreak, leaving you staring at empty walls in a rented apartment, wondering if all those late nights at the office were worth the echo of loneliness. But at least that bot doesn't end up crashing back at home with its aging parent. Right, a little bitter laugh there to mask the sting, the kind that hides the deeper ache of starting over. Relocating to my old family house in Cedar Ridge community felt like waving a white flag to fate. But when your mom starts stashing the remote in the fridge and mistaking you for your late father, well, ego takes a backseat to duty. The place still echoed with Dad's presence. Jonathan Harper, that faint whiff of aftershave blending with engine grease from endless weekends tinkering in the garage, tools scattered like relics of his unyielding spirit. Even those oil spots on the pavement seemed like silent guardians of the past, reminding me of summers spent handing him wrenches, learning life's lessons through calloused hands. Evelyn had her ups and downs with the memory fog. On the bright days she'd spin tales of her childhood here when Cedar Ridge was just untamed forest and stubborn soil, her voice lilting with joy as she described berry-picking adventures. But on the shadowed ones, she'd lay out an extra plate for Dad, wondering aloud why he was tardy from the job site, her eyes distant, pulling at my heartstrings with every confused glance. Those were the times I'd bundle her up for a quiet outing to the lake. That sacred corner where her dad, my grandpa Samuel Harper, had first taught her to bait a hook way back in '65, the ritual a fragile thread connecting her to clarity. You have to grasp this. Cedar Lake wasn't some natural miracle dropped from the heavens. It was forged by human grit, a reservoir clawed from the hard ground by a crew of 40 tough souls pulling brutal shifts in the blistering heat of '63, Samuel leading them as crew chief, his palms forever etched with dirt, his spine curved from endless surveys under a merciless sun, sweat mixing with clay to form a second skin. Stories of blisters and camaraderie that he passed down like heirlooms. I've got this faded snapshot of him waist-deep in muck, helmet pushed back, beaming like he'd conquered the impossible, his grin capturing the pride of creation amid exhaustion. The original Cedar Ridge Developments Incorporated wasn't some faceless corporation. It was hometown folks who honored hard work, granting every builder and their kin eternal rights to the waters, etched right into the land titles. Your grandpa poured his soul into this, Dad would remind me, so your descendants can reel in tomorrow's catch without question. That brittle document was our unbreakable bond, yellowed edges speaking to decades of unchallenged peace. Then along came Victoria Langford, like a storm cloud dressed in designer labels, 68 and fresh from some exclusive enclave in Westport, Connecticut, where she'd ruled the roost as community board chair until a scandal chased her out in 2019. Whispers of embezzlement and favoritism that followed her like shadows snapped up the grandest mansion overlooking the lake, the former Bennett estate, dropping over $1 million in cold cash. Before the vans even cleared out, she was scheming, worming her way onto the Cedar Ridge HOA board, then orchestrating a quiet takeover to claim the presidency within months. Her slogan all about upholding prestige and safeguarding assets, which anyone who's tangled with these types knows is code for squeezing out anyone without a fat bankroll. Her meetings laced with veiled threats and condescending smiles that masked a predator's intent. That fateful dawn when it all erupted, I was settling Evelyn into her worn lawn chair by the shore, the fog lifting like whispers from the past, distant motors humming across the water, birds calling in the crisp air. She was humming an old gospel tune, clear-eyed and content, her fingers tracing patterns in the sand, until those clipped footsteps echoed on the pier, sharp as accusations. There she was, Victoria, materializing in overpriced workout gear, gripping a glossy set of regulations. Like a holy writ, declaring this sacred ground off-limits to non-contributors, her voice dripping with entitlement that made my blood simmer. I stayed calm, rigging the line, greeting her politely. "We've claimed this perch since long before your time, ma'am," but her response sliced through the air, cold and final. "Not anymore. The board's imposed a new privilege levy, $500 a head yearly," eyeing Evelyn like she was a blight on the view. "Make it 1,000, payable now." The demand hanging heavy, forcing me to swallow the urge to retort with something sharper. That's where I slipped, firing back a suggestion on where she could file that demand. And by the next sunrise, her kin, Connor Langford, all smug prep school vibe at 5 feet 6 inches, was pounding a citation onto our siding with enough force to chip the trim, scampering off to his luxury ride before I could confront him in my sleepwear. The notice a masterpiece of intimidation, breaching code 247.3b, misuse of shared amenities, $250,000 fine stacking daily, the adhesive ripping away dad's last paint job, a final insult to his memory even from beyond, stirring a deep-seated resolve in me to unearth the truth buried in our family's past. I tore through the attic archives that morning, dust and faded scents stirring ghosts as I unearthed boxes in Jonathan's precise script, cobwebs brushing my face like forgotten regrets. And there, in a file marked vital, was the 1963 Accord, affirming our perpetual rights, irrevocable, standard legalese, but tucked behind it, a bombshell that dropped me to the floor. A stock certificate declaring Samuel Harper a 5% stakeholder in Cedar Ridge Developments Incorporated, entitling him to shares of all holdings, including the depths and shores, the realization dawning like sunlight-piercing clouds. If he co-owned the venture that birthed the lake, then so did we. In part, a legacy weapon I hadn't known existed. I duplicated it at the public archive since her spouse controlled the local copy center, the archivist, Mrs. Leong, murmuring warnings about Victoria's attempts to purge uncomfortable histories, urging me to strike back hard, her eyes sparkling with shared defiance. That evening's HOA assembly buzzed with tension, Victoria presiding like a judge in a kangaroo court, her panel fidgeting, the hall thick with stale brew and unease, whispers circulating like undercurrents. She cooed my name when I took the stand, here to settle up, but I thrust forth the proofs. Our lineage holds eternal passage, and this equity stake proves partial ownership. You can't penalize us for claiming what's ours. The hush was electric, her composure cracking beneath the fillers, denial sputtering that outdated relics bowed to modern governance. But Patricia Monroe from the panel countered that core entitlements endure, proposing a hold pending review. Victoria slamming it down, rallying her loyalists, 3 votes snapping up. Richard Ellis hesitating under her glare before reluctantly joining. Decree passed, then swiftly pivoting to a barrier installation at the access point, keypads for vetted entrance. Only, under the guise of protection, igniting outrage, barriers choking emergency paths, generations barred from heritage, the room erupting in shouts that echoed my inner turmoil. In the uproar, Patricia clutched my arm. "She's rattled." That stake unnerved her, slipping me a list of displaced originals. "Reach out fast." Her words a spark in the chaos. Outside, heavy machinery growled through the dusk, Victoria barking orders into her device. Permits be damned. Codes in her hands alone. The fuel stench overpowering the night blooms, her haste betraying fear. And as she sped off, I scanned the note. A dozen contacts. Her scrawl warning of repeated tactics from Westport. Probe what followed. The pieces falling into place like a puzzle long ignored. Within 2 days, she'd fortified our haven into a fortress, a towering automated barrier sealing the sole broad route, sleek metal, digital lock, surveillance eyes glaring, a warning display flashing trespass threats, the structure looming like a symbol of division. I observed from afar as locals fumbled for entry. Mrs. Olson, reliant on aquatic exercises post-surgery, trembling at the panel, her frustration palpable in the morning chill. Richard dispensing codes to the favored while dodging. Gazes from the denied, like the Simmons couple, wedded over half a century. Their ritual outings shattered, the patriarch's spirit crumbling visibly, tears welling as memories flashed before him, fresh asphalt fumes mingling with the dawn mist, altering our world overnight, turning neighbors into strangers divided by steel. But her frenzy overlooked a fatal flaw, obstructing vital rescue lanes. Chief Harlan Brooks cornering me at the fuel stop, jaw set, declaring it a lethal hazard. Ambulances stranded in crisis, his voice grave with the weight of potential tragedy, vowing demolition through channels or force, timelines stretching months, but paperwork launching immediately, gripping my shoulder with old loyalty. Your father saved my sibling from those depths in '82. Some obligations transcend time, his words, evoking a sense of inherited duty that bolstered my fight. That day, instinct led me to the records vault, musty with aged tomes and cleanser, Mildred Vance peering up, noting my resemblance to Samuel, stubborn and wary, intuiting Victoria's meddling when I spilled the tale, recalling her probing visits on titles, unearthing that Cedar Ridge Developments Incorporated lingered undead, never wound down. The lake's core dominion still vested there, not the HOA. Her revelation hitting like a thunderclap, the implications unfolding in my mind like a map to victory. My pulse raced. The 1963 charter confirming the waters and bed remained corporate. Dormant entities like latent forces, Dad's wisdom echoing that shareholders cling to claims absent closure, Mildred affirming my fractional hold, empowering audits and revelations of the rest, her encouragement fueling a fire I hadn't felt in years. Dialing Patricia's roster that night unveiled horrors. The Miller clan bled dry by phantom levies, recounting sleepless nights over mounting debts. The Patels hounded with penalties till surrender, their homes sold in despair. The Lee family plagued by fabricated hazards, inspectors appearing like ghosts, buyers materializing suspiciously. Always CR Holdings Trust, Mrs. Miller hissing to trace the purchaser. Mirroring Westport schemes, CR echoing our roots, a twisted mockery that twisted the knife of betrayal deeper. On the veranda with Evelyn, her clarity piercing, she grasped the theft, labeling it heartless exploitation, her insight a rare gift amid the fog. Dawn brought new assaults, privilege notices demanding half-grand yearly taped to legacy doors, the ploy crystallizing, engineer hardships to compel cheap sales, CR devouring the fallout. But now I grinned at the irony, her diesel traces fading as resolve swelled. She presumed dominance, blind to our hidden arsenal, the fight awakening a purpose-eyed, lost in corporate drudgery. The ultimatum landed certified, the carrier apologetic under her scrutiny, from a ritzy Westport firm, Langford, Pierce and Associates. Connor the signatory despite his barred status, alleging sedition, torment, plots to deflate worth, cease neighbor chats or face libel wars. Evelyn spotting the terror beneath, sharp as ever, threats signaling concealed rot, her observation sharpening my strategy. Consulting Laura Sanchez, Dad's estate handler, she dismissed it as intimidation tactics, courts loathing such suppressions, empowering counters and fees, but defense alone wouldn't suffice. Offense beckoned, her expertise a beacon in the legal maze. Alex Monroe, Patricia's tech-savvy offspring, dove into records, unveiling Cedar Ridge Developments Incorporated's shadowy shift to CR Holdings Trust in 2018, pre-Victoria, sealed but timed suspiciously, replicating in New Haven, Connecticut, Dover, Delaware, Norfolk, Virginia. Racketeering whispers growing louder, the revelation thundering that originals held 35% collectively. A block to summon reviews, challenge grabs, the power shifting palpably. We convened covertly at Patricia's, her pie's warmth clashing with the gravity, cinnamon scents mingling with printed proofs, unveiling the interstate con, our stake overlooked in her haste. Walter Jenkins producing his kin's certificate, pushing us to 40%, a powerhouse, the room buzzing with newfound unity. Patricia confided the barrier's peril, charges imminent, anonymous tips fingering Victoria's overrides, the breeze carrying promise as I drove, her silencing bids backfiring into amplification, the night air alive with possibility. Derek Vaughn, the investigator indebted for Dad's testimony saving his child, unearthed Victoria as CR's core, multi-million hauls across states. The 1963 docs granting protective clauses voiding her acquisition sans offers, plus scattered heirs of the remaining 60%, eager for justice, FBI shadows lengthening. Willowbrook their capstone for federal nets, greed slop exposing her. His findings a cascade of vindication. Our command center hummed in the garage, charts mapping her empire, sticky notes fluttering like flags of war, Patricia rallying faithful, Carlos Rivera dissecting ledgers revealing embezzled $250,000, funneled to ghosts tied to CR, fiduciary breaches promising cells, statutes allowing summons with our hold, now 87% with allies, plotting dissolution, true communal stewardship, the plan solidifying amid late-night coffees. Strategy coalesced, injunctions on safety grounds, corporate calls, state probes, FBI alignment for spectacle at the Harvest Fair, media primed, allies swelling, Evelyn's recollection of a buried vault adding narrative gold, descriptions of its contents sparking imaginations, Victoria oblivious in her arrogance, her empire cracking unseen. Her unraveling accelerated, tires sabotaged, cams obscured, but footage nailing Connor's nocturnal prowls, his social boasts sealing fates, restraining orders snapping shut, rotting bait deliveries terrorizing, Evelyn's distress fueling my fury, yet contained through deep breaths and reminders of the bigger picture, the broadcast amplifying our plight, Evelyn's defiant stand viraling, capturing hearts with her unyielding spirit, Victoria's frantic bribe call, threats recorded, gifting extortion. Proofs, her voice cracking with desperation that betrayed her facade, flyers slandering me traced to her, probes launching, Richard's defection with data dumps exposing frauds, emails fingering partner Marcus Hale, her festival sabotage flopping, traced felonies mounting, each misstep building our case like bricks in a wall of justice. Filings rained down Friday, shotgun suits against us for imagined wrongs, Connor's tainted mark voiding them, Laura spotting openings for our claims, Mrs. Leong delivering cross-state clippings mirroring patterns, each article a thread in the web of deceit, Richard confessing her mania, flash drives brimming with proofs, metadata linking Marcus, anonymous warnings failing as setup dawned, Victoria parading in finery, goons intimidating, but crowd swelled, media hungry, black vehicles signaling. Feds, the tension thick as festival aromas wafted. The server advanced, papers thrust amid flashes, Victoria paling at shareholder demands, fraud calls, her hands shaking subtly. I amplified the void transfer, Laura exposing Connor's disgrace, guards retreating, Agent Lisa Wong advancing for interstate chats, denials crumbling as testimonies surged, Patricia's indictments of bigotry, recordings damning, neighbors unleashing pent grievances, each story a cathartic release, Victoria erupting in slurs, confessing corruptions, Evelyn's rebuke. Silencing all, her words resonating with generational wisdom, my playback of threats igniting outrage, arrests clamping, her rants fading as vehicles departed, Connor muddied and cuffed, the scene a whirlwind of vindication. Cheers erupted, barriers falling, communal reclamation declared, the way Samuel envisioned, tools clanging in triumphant symphony. Months on, I stood there again, barrier reborn as tribute plaque, sign welcoming all, Victoria caged for a dozen years, Connor exiled to charges, network dismantled, restitutions flowing, families reclaiming lost dreams, Marcus Yogi in bars, vault yielding heritage proofs, letters and photos evoking tears of connection, Her seized manor, now Samuel Harper Center, hosting aids against tyrants. Community events buzzing with life. My venture booming. Aiding exposures nationwide. Evelyn Steady in. Routines. Her smiles a balm. Sundays communal casts. Scholarships blooming. Festivals thriving with anti-tyrant rights. 3 simple edicts ensuring equity. Her theft thwarted forever. The lake's ripples a testament to resilience. And there it wraps, a tale of grit reclaiming what's rightfully ours. Closure in the ripples where no thief can touch again. But tell me, was this vigilante justice too far, or does standing against such unchecked greed define true morality? Where do you draw the line between revenge and righteousness in the face of systemic wrongs?